Should be recording now, baby. Let's go. We are live in the Impact Effect digital community. I got my man John Mediana here, and I'm fired up for today's monthly marketing strategy call, man. We were just chatting before this, John and I, and we were like, man, what does everybody need? What were they talking about the last couple of weeks? And who have we engaged with in the community? And where are they struggling? Where is their opportunity, essentially? And we've got some cool stuff we're going to share with you today. And I'm excited. John Mediana in the house, man.
Let's go.
Man, you've been all over the place.
Dude, it's been amazing. Our team's growing. Things are happening. Our whole mission is to help people tell their story better and everywhere, right? So, that's what we've been doing, bro. Every single day. I think we work 8 days a week, but it's incredible, man. And I'm excited. The more people that you're helping, the more your purpose is being fulfilled. And I forget the quote, but it's somewhere around. And I'm gonna butcher it, right? But if you want to find purpose or a direction in your life, help people achieve their dreams, right? So help people. Put people first and think about human impact, in that way where it's not just a self-serving, I need more money and my company needs more money. It's how many people can I serve? How many people can I help with the knowledge and experience that I've been accumulating over the how many years, right? And I want us to think about that today because we're going to be really diving in, as we were talking earlier, about who you're serving. How do you find your audience, right? Who are they? And it's frustrating as a business owner if you're trying to build something and you've probably had past clients that you had to fire, or it was just not the right fit, or you're trying to help everybody, so you're reaching nobody. So today, I've been hearing, how do I find the right people, right? How do I find the right clients? How do I service the right people? And there's ways to do that. It's not just I'm just going to put a bunch of stuff out there and see who comes to me, right? It's not that. It's very strategic. So today we're going to dive into that.
So what would you say, and I'm happy to share a story myself, but was there a time in your career or your period of growth where you weren't navigating this opportunity, meaning you weren't really trying to drill down and understand who you can serve and at the highest level? And then can you tell us kind of about how you figured that out?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's every day of when I first decided to become an entrepreneur, right? I think when people say, hey, chase your passion, what you're passionate about, I don't think that's the best advice. You know what I mean? Because when I chased my passion in the very beginning, it was creativity. And I was I just want to be behind a camera. I just want to take photos. I want to learn. I want to do all that stuff. And then when I actually made a business out of it, I got burned out. I had to deal with people. I had to deal with taxes. I had to deal with maintaining I had a 1,500 square foot warehouse with my name on it, John Mediana Media Production. And that was the sexy thing that I was sold. Oh, chase your passion, chase your passion, chase your passion. And then I quickly realized that, oh, dang, this takes work. I can't just be a creative. I need to learn business. And that was a real big challenge, going into the business of creativity, because everyone's like, well, you're so good at what you do. You're so good at what you do. And you get this praise. And then some people are you just suck at what you do. But you get this idea of oh, I could do this. And then you actually practice the business work of it. Well, I can't do this for everybody, because some people, they want stuff for free. They want stuff for $100. They want stuff, how can I actually make recurring income, predictable income? I have to have a message for the right people at the right time in the right place. And I had to learn that really the hard way, doing a lot of things and failing over and over and over, and really changing my offers. And I feel I went through hundreds of thousands of different offers that I had to create around this one subject of creativity, so I had to really evolve and mature in product development. And, when you're in a niche, you could do all the things, right? But that's not ideal, right? You got to do one thing and offer one thing that you could repeat, and that repeating business and that repeating offer is really key. So Yeah, it took a long while, I think, and I think for an entrepreneur, it will take a while, to figure out what the product is, what the offer is, who are you targeting. It just takes a lot of work and practice, and no one can just be like, here it is, here's a good start, and then someone else just does it for you. You would never understand how you got there, right? So that's why I always say do the work. We have some sayings in our company, around our office and our studio right now. One of them is called do the work, right? So one of our mottos is do the work. When you do the work, you get the results because you put in the formula and the time and you figured it out along the way. So if you're trying to adopt someone else's formula, adopt someone else's process, it took them time to figure that out. It might not work for you, right? So it might not reach the people that you're trying to reach. It might not, be the offer that you wanted to offer. It might not be the same business plan that you have to operate, because you're unique and you have your own life and you have your own idea of how you want to build your lifestyle. So not everything works cookie cutter like that.
So what I'm hearing, and in my experience, what I've realized is we can't chase the shiny objects. We need to focus. We need to have clarity. And as an entrepreneur, that's hard,
Yeah.
right? There's 20 people coming to you saying, do this, do that.
Mm-hmm.
You should think about this. You should add a product. You should add a service. Have you ever thought about changing it to do this? Have you ever thought about copying this person who's in the same field but completely different than what you do, right? Like we've all had that feedback. And for me, when I first started the first company, the frozen beverage company, I felt this the most because I was new and green, but I knew that we had two niches, small events and around town in Nashville. So we'd show up and we'd sell $3,000 worth of freaking frozen slush in 2 hours and leave. Right. But people were telling me, oh, you should go do corporate big events and you should go do this and that and birthday party. Dude, that was the worst. But I luckily realized this works. Let's keep hammering this nail. Right. So we talked about repeating the same offer. And that target market would buy, right? 2 hours, $3,000 and $7 slush that's a good number of units sold and minimize expense regarding labor, right? So I could feel that on a physical location. I can feel what you're saying from a productization. I can feel what you're saying from a consulting standpoint. David's on the call. David, he said, I couldn't agree more. I'm still learning this.
Yeah.
And David, I'd love to pull you up here and kind of just chat through some stuff. If you're cool, let us know in the chat, and we can make you a co-host, and we can kind of dive into all this. But I've struggled more on the consult side of targeting and niching down because there's so many skill sets that I have that I can help with. But what I've realized is when I really focus on human connection and relationships is where the business strives the most, right? But how many people are really giving you the advice to say, okay, go hammer down that target market, create 3 offers, ABC, test them, figure out what works and run through it. I don't think you actually hear that a lot, right? You hear do this, do that. Mm-hmm. So John, with your experience, especially from marketing and demographics and target audience and avatar clients and all this, what do you think is the most important process to think through when you're in the weeds, when you're in the work, when you could go left, when you could go right?
Yeah.
Like, do you have any framework or any strategy, anything to kind of push out the noise and really go, okay, answer these couple questions or use this framework? And
yeah, absolutely, I do, and I'd love to share that with you. And I see David is super down to join.
I'll plug you in a second, David, and we can.
I'll share my screen. But before I get into it, I think the first thing before we even dive into that is setting the right expectations. So let me give you an example. When you start a business or when you start, marketing, or you're starting, your brand journey and you're trying to, close deals, I think the expectation is that we go into it is oh, it's going to be easy. I just got to close how many deals this month. And I think we go in the mindset of like, oh, this should be simple, because on paper, it is just A plus B equals C. But we all know as an entrepreneur, if you ever built anything, that just doesn't go that way. So my expectation needs to change, right? My expectation management needs to be like, hey, I need to, instead of making 100 calls this week, I need to set that goal to like 1,000 calls, because I think it's the level of expectation that lets us down. So if we're not setting the expectation, saying like, I need to make this many phone calls, I need to reach this many people, I think that the biggest misconception is we are just grossly underestimating the work it takes to build. Like grossly underestimating the time it takes, the effort, the energy, the resources. And I think on paper, we're really conservative about, oh, it should just be this easy. And then when you talk to, your spouse about it, or talking to your teams about it, it should be this easy. And then you get those hiccups along the way where you haven't set the expectation of testing, learning, adapting. You got to test, learn, and adapt. When you're like, okay, here's my hypothesis. If we did 100 calls and 3% of those calls make it to, to a call, but then half of those no show, well, you're going to end up with one call, and maybe they might close or maybe they're not. So we got to elevate that number, right? So like, let's triple that number, let's quadruple that number, because if that's the case, and we're going to be bummed out when someone cancels last minute and you're like, oh, my expectations were low. But if I set my expectations, say like that person is going to cancel no matter what, then when they show up, you're kind of pleasantly surprised. But you set your expectations to that place of like, if this is, and I think it's like, it's not negative thinking, by the way, it's almost like just future proofing expectations, because my expectation is people are busy. People have a busy life, that this isn't the most important thing or pressuring thing on their agenda today, right? But if I built a message where it became urgent to them, and I became a specialist instead of a generalist, where they're like, hey, I don't have a headache, I need brain surgery, you are going to be the most expected call for them and the most positive call for them throughout the day. So if you position your message with the right audience, it's going to make more sense for you to have a higher conversion rate of show rates. Does that make sense? So I want to, like, number one, set the expectation of you got to do more. Whatever you're doing, you got to do more. And that's just it, right? So, hey, David.
Hey.
David, what's up, brother?
Dude, it is a cloudy day here after a sunny day yesterday. What's up with that? But here's the thing. It doesn't matter. The work keeps going on, and we have to do what we have to do. I want to key off something that John just said that really I think a lot of us miss. Look, when you're doing what you're called to do, that's easy. When you're selling what you're called to do, that's where it's hard.
Yeah, because you want.
What a great way to pull that back.
And so
simple, clear.
Yeah, I mean, think about it, man. When I'm doing consulting work and somebody's like asking me for ideas and stuff, and you're like, hey, I'm taking this step back, I'm looking at it, I'm seeing it from a perspective they may not have had. Man, I am in the zone. I can do it. Convincing somebody to ask me the question and then pay me to do that for them, that's where the heart is.
Yeah.
And I think we need to be able to separate the two. Because like John says, you got to do more. You got to get in front of more people. You got to make more offers. You got to do, I mean, yeah, all that is true. But understand that the benefit of that is that you get to do the easy. Yeah. The easy is the thing you were called to do, the thing that brings you joy, the thing that brings you energy, that man, I'm really operating my purpose into my flow.
Yeah.
So I think as a person who vastly desires y'all's knowledge and all, I think probably that's how do you take what you love to do and want to do, and how do you get yourself in the place to market that thing to where people will pay you to do what you love to do and want to do.
Yeah, I love that. That you're spot on, David. Thank you for that. I wrote your quote down, brother. That was great.
So, John, in that realm of discussion, so you're doing what you're doing. You love. In your case, it was creativity. David, you're consulting. I'm consulting. Right, we're helping people solve problems in all different ways, shapes, forms, and fashions. How do you find, John? You have some framework. What was it, Tam? What you were telling me about? I'm interested in this. Is this
My good friends, my three triplets called Tam, Sam, and Sam. Are you familiar with that, David?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's gonna be good today. We're gonna go through. I need to show. I need to show y'all Tam, Sam, and Sam so that we could get to the next framework, which is very tactical. And we're gonna work through it together because it's not just a. I'm gonna share it. It's like a let's practically use it. It's called the competence and awareness grid, or what we call the golden grid in our company. Are you familiar with that grid?
Mm-mm.
So all these things we're gonna be learning
I'll
today.
do. Let's go.
All right. Well, let's dive into it then. Carol, let me go ahead and share my screen. I'm really excited because this is very, very, very tactical. And maybe we're going to learn something new today about, defining our audience. So this is really about when I went into business, and my dad, he was my business mentor. The first thing he said to me was how to package. He taught me how to package my offer and all those things. But I needed to first identify the market, right? So I needed to identify my market and who I'm actually targeting. So Tam, Sam, and Sam, this is what it means: total addressable market, serviceable available market, and serviceable obtainable market. Right? And you could screenshot that, take a picture of it. This is really, really important in whatever industry you're in. Whatever industry, whether it's real estate, whether it's product, whether it's service, whether it's e-commerce. If you could identify these things, you'll have an idea of who you could actually serve, right? So it goes from TAM, which is total addressable market. So let's just say you're in the business of, you're in the business of cell phones, right? So like you're Apple selling cell phones, right? Or maybe you're an Apple competitor and you're coming out with a new cell phone. The total addressable market is how many people need cell phones, right? I think like 8 billion people need cell phones, right, to stay connected. But let's just say 5 billion of them, which is close to the number that's more realistic, 5 billion people have cell phones. Okay, so that's your total addressable market. People that are buyers, people that are new buyers, people that are already buying cell phones, already in the market and very familiar with cell phones. Right? Your serviceable available market is a portion of a market that you could acquire based on your business model. So let's just say 5 billion people use cell phones. How many people can you actually service that's available that will actually be a portion of the market that you could actually acquire business from? So let's just say, for example, if you're Apple or competing with Apple, Apple's the largest. So they have, if they're servicing 5 billion, if you could address 5 billion people, Apple's taken more than half, so probably 60%. So you could actually service the available market that you could service that does not have an Apple product is probably 40%, right? So like your competitors now have less than where you could actually acquire a new clientele through that business model, whatever that business model is. Whoever doesn't want to purchase an Apple iPhone, you're competing for their attention so that they buy yours instead. So people that are in the Apple family, it's going to be really difficult to convert them to a new acquisition as a client or a service. So what you want to do is people that don't want to purchase or isn't part of the Apple family, you want to capture their attention first. So you're going to use marketing and messaging that attracts them and say, hey, like we're not Apple, but this is what you could do with our technology. So you see Google Pixel, you see Android, all their commercial is a lot of them actually throw shade at Apple. It's really funny, if you watch their marketing and messaging. So they're trying to work around the serviceable available markets. That's the available market that you could service that is based upon your business model that you got to create marketing. Now, the last one here, and it gets smaller, right? So the serviceable obtainable market. So percentage of that available market that realistically you can capture. So let's just say there's 5 billion people that use cell phones, 3.6 billion people are iPhone users. That leaves 2.4 billion people to the open market. And then your competitors are in that open market. So you got to market yourself in a way where you could capture a certain percentage of the 2.4 billion users that are using Google or Android or Windows phones, right? So really a small percentage of that, less than 10% might be your target there. So you might be able to capture 500,000 to 1.2 million, and that's the service obtainable market. So you got to really dial it in, and who can you actually figure out that you could actually serve, obtain that market. Is this helpful at all? Is this
yeah, so this is like the 30,000 square foot view, step one, right? Like,
yeah,
so you're
absolutely.
saying, okay, I'm a consultant. In my case, I'm going to work with people to grow relationships and human connection. So that's everybody.
Yeah.
8 billion out of 8 billion can benefit from that. The
Absolutely.
serviceable available market would be for me, people who care about it.
Yeah. They have an affinity for it. They're aware that they need it.
And then the people who actually I would service is a smaller market that I can obtain.
Yeah.
Around.
They're competent.
So when you have that SOM, now you have to take it down to that avatar client, right?
Yeah.
And where you start going through all the details around.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to go through in the next slide. So I'm excited that you said that, because we had to address this part, 30,000 foot, and we're going to get very, very, very tactical. So, when you move down the pipe, when it comes from total addressable market to serviceable available market to service obtainable market, you got to identify who's competent and who's aware, right? Who's competent and who's aware. And the grid is a 4-grid quadrant. So you're going to see in the top left, competent and unaware. And we're going to identify those people, that audience, right? Then you move to the right, competent and aware. So let's just say if they are competent, that they need networking or they need events, or they're doing events, they're competent in doing it, putting it on together or showing up, right? And they're also aware that this will help them grow to build more relationships, right? The competent and aware folks, right? But their methodology is different. So every person's methodology is different when it comes to competency and awareness. The bottom left is they're incompetent and unaware. Those are the people that are just like, this ain't for me, right? This is probably not for me because I'm incompetent and I'm not aware. And it's going to take a lot of time to get to awareness or competency. The bottom right is what we call incompetent and aware. So they don't know, maybe they're incompetent. They don't know how to do the thing or how to join an event or what that is like or anything like that, but they're aware that they need it in their business, right? So they're aware that they need to build more relationships. They're aware that they need more sales. They're aware that this stuff could actually help, but they're incompetent of how to go about that. What's the strategy on building more relationships? What's the strategy on closing more deals? I don't know any of that stuff. I'm kind of incompetent when it comes to that field of interest, right? So what I want to do is identify, Jim, some people, we could do this practically, right? So
let's use David as an example.
Yeah, David. So tell me what it is that you do. What is your business model and all that?
So basically, let the TAM SOM, in my consulting. So my total addressable market is anybody who needs consulting work, much like what Jim mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
However, because of let's face it, my age,
mm-hmm.
my SAM is people that are in the age group and in business,
mm-hmm.
40 to 65-ish.
Okay.
And then my SOM is the people who are in leadership in those roles.
Okay.
And so they know that they have to adapt. They have to look at things differently than they always have, because the idea of, tunnel visioned leadership no longer works, right?
Yeah.
So that is who I'm going after, is the person who is, they're competent and unaware, is the guy who's been running his business for 30 years and now is only now seeing problems because the way he's done it and the way he's always done it's always worked for them.
Mm-hmm.
Incompetent and aware is somebody who's like, look, if I don't do something, I'm going to lose my business. I'm going to lose my organization. I'm going to lose my team because I don't have the skill set to look, beyond that. And then probably competent and aware is going to be, basically someone like me who's like, look, I've pivoted so many times in my life and career. I'm an early adopter to trying new things because I know that the way I've always done it's not going to be the way I always do it. So that's really kind of the quadrants, if you will.
What about the incompetent and aware folks?
That's going to be the person that's like, I know things have changed, but I don't know how to change along with them. You know, it's kind of like, I'll give you a good example. And remember, this is a generational mindset. This isn't how Dave thinks per se. Mm-hmm. But the generational mindset is, if I get a resume from somebody and they've changed jobs 5 times in the last 6 years, I see them as non-committal. Mm-hmm. But the generation behind me is maybe seeing it as, I'm developing multiple skills to bring extreme value later on in my career journey. Mm-hmm. So that is one of the mindsets that I have to help somebody take a look at and say, look, don't look at just the numbers, look at the paragraph, ask them the questions, go ahead and go through the interview process. Those, again, it's all around those types of things.
Identify the competency and awareness. So the competency, what question would that be that someone's competent in adjusting or having the competency to make the change in their business? What's something that's an identifier for you?
I would say the language that somebody uses. If they use terms like innovation, if they use terms like adjustment, I'll know that they have a competency or at least an awareness. Because I see this all the time, especially in the military circles. You know, they'll throw around terms like innovation, but then they will stifle innovation because of ego. So
willing to take action.
Yes.
Right. That's competency.
Yes.
So you could have like a 10-minute conversation with someone and you'll pretty much know whether they're competent or not.
Right.
Okay. Give me an example of awareness.
So awareness would be, and I'll use my own previous / current industry as an example, mm-hmm. which is print media. Mm-hmm. The awareness would be something of like, my profits have eroded to the place where there's no more profits, and I know if I don't change something, everything's going to change, and I'm not ready for that. Remember, we're more security driven in my age group.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So that awareness, that security awareness, or the lack of security awareness, I believe will be a factor.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So awareness is my profit has eroded, and I'm aware something needs to change. Right.
Right.
So that's the awareness part. So like, if we were gonna map out this grid for you, right, and I would say, and here's the whole thing about this grid. You're not trying to move them all into one grid.
Right.
You want to move them from one stage to the next stage. Right.
That's important. Dive a little bit deeper into that for me, John, because I think this is where I struggle as well with this.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, let's just say the person that you want to tackle, right, is probably an incompetent and aware person. Incompetent really meaning like they don't know the structure or strategy or any of that, but they're really aware that they need it. So they're going to spend the money to do it. Right. You want to move them. If they're incompetent, you want to, all your messaging is problem awareness content. So if they're going to convert or you're going to convert them, you need to make them competent and aware. Right. So you need to move them from incompetent and aware to competent and unaware, or competent and aware. Right. So you don't want to move them from one place directly to, so let's just say you're incompetent and unaware. You're on the bottom left. You don't move them straight to competent and aware right away.
Right.
You got to move one thing down the pipe. So if they're incompetent and unaware, you need to move them to incompetent and aware. So you got to create problem awareness content or make problem awareness conversations happen, meaning that they're not aware they have a problem. So you have to expose the problem to make them aware of it. So you got to focus heavily. If you have a conversation 10 minutes into the conversation, you're like, this person's incompetent and unaware. My issue is I'm not going to talk about sales. I'm not going to talk about what we could do, what we could offer them. I'm going to talk about, are they actually even aware that they have a problem? So you want to move them from one grid to the next one over. Is, can I create awareness from them for them? And if they're incompetent, you know, how do I move them from a conversation of like, hey, they're aware they have this problem, but they don't have a strategy. So I'm going to share my strategy with them, and then I'm going to charge them for the execution, right? I'm going to sell the execution, and I'm going to give them the strategy for free. So you're taking that incompetent person, you're making them competent and aware so they could do business with you, right? A competent and unaware person is like, hey, I've used all these tools. I've done 50 events. I put them on myself, man, but nothing's converting. I can't make money off of this, right? So they're so unaware of how they could actually make deals happen, how they could leverage and monetize their events. So you got to move them from competent, like, you know, all the stuff, you used it, but you have big unawareness around this topic of how you could keep this going and grow in your business. So you got to move them from competent and unaware to competent and aware, so you could close deals and make them into a client. Does that make sense? So you don't want to just move them from one stage all the way to the where you ideally want to close deals. You got to have a message that transitions them from one place to another. If you can work on that message, then you're going to close more deals because you could actually sell them something that they felt you've helped them accomplish.
So as we're looking at it from the consulting standpoint, and I just getting clarification both for me and those that are watching, you would give them the framework that they need to execute to accomplish what they want to accomplish, but then your system, your structure, your offer would be the ongoing helping you on a regular basis.
Yeah,
move it in the execution of that structure.
Absolutely. So I would say, like, hey, accountability is huge. You know, if you're trying to take your company, you know, from A to B, it's going to take time and it's going to take accountability, because right now it sounds like a shiny object syndrome. This is the most important thing right now today. But come 6 weeks from now, you're not going to think about this because you default into your old ways because you don't have a coach. So I have a 12-month program that is retainer based every month, and I'm going to keep you accountable to making sure that you reach growth. Do you want to reach growth by the end of 12 months, or do you want to be stagnant and the same next year?
There you go.
Right? So your message has to change according to the competency and awareness level of who you're speaking to. So the whole point and reason of this problem right here, or this grid, is going to help you identify some questions. So let's just say they're competent and unaware, right? So let's just give them. Do you have someone in that you've been talking to that kind of falls in this quadrant? We could just give them a name.
To be honest with you, I have yet to get them to that quadrant. You know, mine is still on the making them aware that there's a problem, and I have an opportunity to solve that problem.
Yeah, let's go real time. Like, what is a current person that you're trying to you know, get into your system that where do they land? Give me a name and give me a quadrant that they land.
Okay, let's go with a guy by the name of Simit.
Okay.
And he is actually a mid-level manager that's in his 40s. Mm-hmm. And he lands in incompetent and aware.
Okay, so his name is, how do you spell it?
Simit, S-I-M-I-T.
Simit, and he is a manager?
Yeah, he leads a small team within an organization.
Okay. And let's just say this. What is his incompetency and what is his awareness?
Okay, so he's incompetent in team management as far as how to get the most out of the team with the least amount of, how should I say, negative reinforcement.
Mhm.
Level 1 leadership.
Yeah. But he's also an overthinker. So he like manufactures problems in his mind
Mhm.
that may or may not exist.
Yep. And his awareness is he aware of
And
like,
he's aware he's an overthinker. So he knows that, you know, what I've learned in some of my interactions with him is he's one of those, I know I'm this way, but I don't know how not to be this way.
mhm.
So he's aware, but he's incompetent because he doesn't have a framework, or he's and this will be what we learn through the process is he willing to work within a framework to help?
That's good. That's good. So my question here, starting question. So I always like to do this. Anytime I identify a person in a quadrant, I want to have a question that will open up the idea of how we could start shifting them from one quadrant to the next, right? So we got to move them from incompetent and aware to competent and aware. So what's one question you could ask them that will open up the door for that conversation for competency?
The way I think about it is my question would be, if you knew that how you manage a team would directly impact your upward mobility within the organization, what would you do differently? Because none of us want to be in the same spot 5 years from now that we are today.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's in an organization that is very people focused, which it is, he's in public policy and government relations, lobbyists, that kind of thing.
So I guess see, that's a phenomenal question. My other question I would ask is, hey, what do you want? Where do you see yourself in 5 years in this organization?
Yeah.
Right. That's a good one. Well, is it going to be the same, or do you have even the desire to climb the ladder? Do you have a desire to grow into a new level? If you don't, and you want to stay in this level, you're just going to stay in management mode. You know what I mean? I'm just maintaining, and I just don't want to get fired. Right. So then that's a different conversation. Right. So my conversation that I would start with is that, but even a pre-qualifier is like, do you even have the desire to move up? Right. Like where do you see yourself in this organization in the next 5 to 10 years? You might even not have that. Well, he's like, well, I want to be retired, but then it's like, let's just give it 5 years. Okay.
World may end before then, according to everybody.
Jesus might be coming back. But I think that might be a good starting point, because now you're starting to get him to think of what the future looks like,
right,
and his process of how to get there. How many more years do you think it will take for you to understand this? How many more laps do you want to take in the same year? Mm-hmm. Right now, you're just like, wow, that sounds terrible. Like, I want to get to the next level. Is there an opportunity for growth in my career? Is there an opportunity? Can I see that? Can I envision that? Like, and it really depends, if it's like, hey, I really want to grow in this company in the next year. I want to become more of a director or more of an executive position or something like that, where I lead more teams or I manage team leads, and I'm a captain where I have a bunch of leadership around me where I manage, if that's a desire for him, I'm like, man, well, do you, my follow-up. So asking the right questions is all about the golden grid. Are you asking the right questions? Well, do you think that you can do that with your capacity that you have now when it comes to your leadership? Right? Do you think you could get there with the knowledge you have now? What do you think it will take? Do you think it will take a coach to coach you in the next 12 months to get to where you want to be and keep you accountable to the desired outcomes that you're looking for and how to get there? Right? If the answer is no, then it's like, well, what else do you got? Like, you say you want to get here, Simit. Give me a roadmap on your plan to get there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is this helpful? When it comes to messaging, asking the right questions, I love questions. I love asking the right questions.
How do you create content around competence and awareness? So like in David's example, if David was going to go create next week's posts and he's got a couple clients that aren't aware. He's got a couple potential clients that aren't competent.
Yeah.
What could be a good idea for
So
David to put some content out around that could bring competence and bring awareness to what he's doing?
yeah, absolutely. So I love the competent and aware folks. And a lot of people wouldn't even try because they're like competent and aware. Like I sell competency and awareness. Like, so it's almost like they wouldn't really fit my model because they're stubborn. They build stuff, they know stuff, they're aware of stuff. But what I learned about competent and aware people, these are people I categorize as blockbusters, right? So competent and aware people are blockbusters, meaning, what happened with Blockbuster? Netflix came in and stole the show, and Blockbuster was competent and aware. Blockbuster had a process and system that they had over 200 retail stores around the nation. They had a process and system, but because they were big, there was gaps that they missed. And whenever someone is competent and aware, they are not thinking about the missed opportunities because they are stuck in their process and systems and they won't change. Right. So they're like very traditional. They're like, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm very competent and I'm aware, but they're not changing with the times. So my question for them, right, would be, or my question to myself on making content is, can I make them aware? Like they have big pains and problems that they're not exposing because they don't want to be exposed, right? Of like, I'm competent and I'm aware. I know what I'm doing. I just don't want to be exposed. So my content that I would create is to expose their weaknesses and expose the gaps. I would expose the things that they never thought about for being competent and aware because they're stuck in their old ways. So the more closer you get to their audience and find the real pain points by having conversations, that's a flanking strategy, a flanking marketing strategy is for the people that are competent and aware, go to their audiences, the people that are doing business with them and poll them, give them surveys, like ask them, hey, what's the biggest frustration? Hey, what's the biggest need? What's the biggest problem that this company is not actually doing for you? Right? Like what's the biggest headache, or you could even read the comment section, right? Read the reviews that they have. And the people that are giving the lower reviews, that's where the pain and problem is in the competency and awareness. So you could actually make content around those problems that people write as reviews and saying, hey, I joined this networking group and man, they're a big, they may have a big organization. They're the biggest in the nation, but here's some problems that I see in that organization. And you hear the frustration directly from the audience. And then you could make content around that problem and pour gasoline on the problem and issue and and produce a product or service around solving that problem. And then you'll become the Netflix to the Blockbuster. You see what I mean?
Mm.
So that's one way around competency awareness, like that issues. I hope that help or give you an idea of how to position your content. Tackle the things that they're not seeing, that they won't see.
Do you think oftentimes though the competent and aware person also has an ego that won't allow them to see or at least receive that negative feedback? I'm thinking of somebody in my head right now that's in the coaching space. They have a crap ton of churn. They're great at client acquisition, but their clients generally flame out after 12 to 36 months because there's no next step for them.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to look at it. They're just like, well, there's 7 billion people on planet Earth. I'll just keep getting more new clients. And I'm like, dude, you're losing an entire. And I just, how would you say something to somebody who's stuck in that?
Yeah, I would. This is a technique that we use called stacking the pain. Stacking the pain. So not only maybe their thing is like, I don't care about losing clients because there's 8 billion people on the planet. Okay. What about those clients that will talk smack about you online and hurt your brand for you to, if you do it more than enough, that you'll have a brand reputation in the market that is destroyed, that can't be rebuilt, that you might have to shut down your business and start a new business because there's allegations, there's people talking about you, and people talk, you know what I mean? So like, how do you protect your brand? Are you building? So my thing is when it comes to stacking the pain is like, are you building a strong brand or a weak brand where your reputation in the market is actually getting demonized and your competitors are picking up those people do you want your competitors to pick up the people that you lose, or do you want to keep the people that you've lost and make them just super fans of your brand? Which one you want?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, so stacking the pain and is all about like, hey man, like, I get it. There's a lot of people out there that you could coach, you know, but once they leave, they're going to go to your competitors and they're going to talk smack about you because, you know, your competitors are now filling the gap of what you couldn't fill. And that's brand reputation. And you might not feel that right now, but over time, in the next 12 months to 18 months, your business is going to feel a decline. So look at your numbers right. You can even say, look at your numbers right now. Are you up this month or down this month? Right? Project in the next 12 months. Are you going to be up or down? You know, when it comes to client retention, churn, brand affinity, like, you know, reputation in the market. And if you're not making an upward tick or upward trend, you're losing. If you're not evolving, you're losing. You're not changing or innovating, you're losing. And wouldn't it be easier to keep those clients than try to find new clients? Like, how much time and effort and energy and money does it take for you to acquire a new client versus keeping the ones that would buy from you always?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Wouldn't it be easier just to have people that are spending money with you spend more money with you than you acquiring a new client? And if they're like, I don't care, then that's a point of no return. It's just like,
Right.
they're not
I think
a person.
that's your confident and unaware, right? They're confident in the field so much that they're unaware of the reality that's occurring. And I think we get to that. I think we all get to that point, but how do we pull it back?
Mm-hmm.
How do we actually get feedback and acquire it and make a good decision? And I think, to your point, you go and look at reviews is a great way, John, right? You go talk to people in the community. You go talk to people who experienced it.
Yeah.
But I think the reality of it is if you're living, and I'm just going to be bold and say this because I disagree with it wholeheartedly. If you're living a life in a business where you just go, there's 8 billion people in this world, then that right there is a red flag on your ethics.
Yeah.
And you don't actually want to serve people at the highest level, and you don't actually want to impact them, and you don't actually care about them. You just care that, hey, I can fuck over people enough, or there's enough people that I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to keep grabbing the next, right? Yeah. And it's a great strategy.
Yeah.
You will make money. That is a strategy that I disagree with. I don't partner with nor collaborate with, right? So, and then my last just statement on this 7 billion, 8 billion people in the world is 8 billion people is your what? Is your first one, your TAM, right? Or Tom, what was it? TAM?
TAM.
That's your first one. So you're not even talking about your song. So you're not even using relevant numbers.
No.
You're just telling yourself that internally to make yourself feel better, right? So like this exercise actually proves that is 8 billion is everybody's TAM, right?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
If you think you can service everybody.
But you're not for everybody, right?
You're not even using the right data to make that intellectual assumption that there's more people. And it tells me about your ethics.
Yep.
Don't you want to help more people at a higher level, or do you want to help more people at a lower level?
Yeah. Because like he has to be really ideal. Like when he says that, and I'm glad you brought it up, Jim, like when they say there's 8 billion people on the planet, it's like, yeah, but what actual percent of that is your serviceable, obtainable market?
Right.
That significantly decreases.
It's a cute statement.
Right.
It's a cute statement. It's fluffy. It's catchy. There's reality in that, right? If you look at the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying, I just think it's cute. There's no depth to that. There's no reality to that. There's no actual growth to that statement. There's no depth to it.
Well, it does. In many cases, that statement says that you don't want to impact anybody.
No.
Because it takes time and effort and depth to help somebody go through a process of change, transformation. This is transaction versus transformation. And transaction can lead to transformation, but not if transaction is the goal.
Right.
Exactly.
I agree.
But I think that's so relevant because it hits that TAM that we're talking about, right? And then, and so you're making a statement around TAM, but you're talking to business owners as if it's some,
Mhm.
right? We're talking billions of people,
Well,
in not incongruence there, right? Like
right,
8 billion for me, I'm not going to service the 500 million people in Kenya as a
Mm-mm.
consultant.
right.
No, not at
Let's
all.
just wipe that right. Like there's reality behind it,
Yeah.
like, anyways, let's keep moving on though. And I
Absolutely.
know we only got a few minutes, so I'd love to just recap and wrap. And if you've got another slide, John, we can keep
No,
rolling, man.
that's
All
really
the
it.
good stuff is awesome.
Yeah, I really hope this was very helpful in identifying, like, okay, I really want to get clear on your audience, that you could, who you could help and who you could actually convert, but understand within 5 to 10 minutes of conversations, you could place someone in one of these quadrants, and then knowing that you place them, what is the next question that you're going to ask them to move them from one quad to the next, so that you could have a better idea of who you can help. And the thing that, if you want to get really really tactical with it, create a product that lives in every quadrant, so you could just give it to, right? So whether it's free, whether it's paid, whether it's low ticket, whether it's high ticket, does someone have something tangible that they could, so like, if they're incompetent and unaware, can you give them like a free PDF or worksheet that builds awareness and then moves them from that? Is there, if you're incompetent and aware, can you give them, because they're aware, can you give them, a $12 workbook that they could subscribe to, right? Can if they're from competent and unaware, right? Can you give them a webinar, right, that they could watch? Can they join the Circle platform that we got? Can they, you know what I mean? So like, if you're gonna get really strategic with it, identify who these people are, give them a name, and then create a product at a ticket level, whether it's free or whether it's high ticket, in that to transition, to know that, hey, if you could identify them in that quadrant, this is their next move and they're willing to purchase X amount. If the pain is high enough, you could convert them into a client or customer. But if it's low pain, you could give them something supplementary and still help them move from one project to another. So
That's so important regarding what your offering is and your competence, our internal competencies as business owners or consultants, of giving what creates that bridge. Like, I've never actually thought about that. When you just said that, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I don't give out free PDFs and stuff like that because I am competent around it and I wouldn't use that, but I need to create the awareness and competence by doing that.
yeah.
So I'm looking too much inward to who I am and how I perceive, rather than to what the potential customer is, to be able to move them from one box to the next, to the next, to the next. And I think the other piece that I made a huge note and circled it, that really hit me based on what you were saying today, is just like, you can't move them from that incompetent and unaware box to competent and aware in one easy stride.
No.
And it's just another reminder: marketing and sales, business in general, doesn't always work on your schedule. Right?
No, it
doesn't always happen the way we want, in the time frame we want, in the circumstance and the experience we want. So
yeah, and it goes back to that first statement, right? Where it's like, can we reset our expectation levels? Like, how much work do we actually got to put in? And looking at the grid, are you doing the work to create the handshake between each grid quadrant? Right. So that's important. And if you're not, you're losing a lot of clients on the table, or people that could come into awareness, quicker, right? And you're losing a lot of money on the table when you can't identify where that person is on the grid, because you're going to have conversations that just doesn't convert because you haven't placed them on the grid. Right. You don't understand where they're coming from, the audience. You're just speaking to them the same way you speak to everybody. And that's not right. You're going to lose.
And I think it comes down to your questions, and then those questions can align and allow you to create marketing strategy and content around it, right? Because if someone says, if you ask a question to 3 meetings this week, 3 discovery calls, human connection, whatever, networking, and that keeps coming up, wow, I should create more content around that. And then I should target that person by sharing directly in the messages, my post.
Yes.
because I know that they're incompetent and this is a competent post.
Yes.
So you're strategically solving problems
Mhm.
from an understanding of your potential client
Yeah.
by marketing strategically with the right content to then drive the opportunity for a sales call
Absolutely.
and close of a
And you can even take all these quadrants, make them into buckets, and say, what content can I make in this bucket that will move them from one area to the next? And then like that's 4 quadrants, so that's like 4 days out of the week, you know, that you could create awareness around or content around, and then you could just repeat that over and over every single week. And then you got a few other days where you could integrate other pieces of content, whether it's promoting your sale, promoting your offer, promoting your event, doing some behind the scenes stuff. Like it's really crucial and important. Now you're dialing in your marketing and you're making content that actually converts because you tied it to a person and a problem. Right. So
mic drop right there. Boom.
I
Let's go.
hope that's helpful. Yeah.
Super helpful. And David, I'd love to hear your opinion on it. But for me, I mean, it was just, I put out content strategically, but I think I'm pushing content. I overload. There's no balance, right? So like competent, info. But I'm not raising the awareness of the problem to then understand they understand they're not competent and they need to find competency in it because they're now aware of it.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Jim. I mean, if I'm thinking about my own content, over the last, 3 months, it's always seems to be aimed at the person who's in the trench doing the work or trying to do the work instead of the person who's unaware that they have work to do.
Yeah.
So that's one. And then the other takeaway I think I'll add to this is I see the SAM as your marketing strategy. Like SAM is when you're on stage and you're sharing a point. SAM is your TikTok. SAM is this is the people you're talking to that you don't know if you can help them or not. You just know that they're helpable.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get them to SOM, which is where the strategy call would take place, which you would then place them in the proper quadrant. And then you would
the conversion.
Yes.
SAM is the address, like you're addressing. So we could even do a whole keynote around our friend Sam.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like address.
That should be a keynote for you.
My friend Sam. I got a keynote called
with this avatar person that's like
a
typical entrepreneur and like
I might have to put together a keynote called My Friend Sam.
There you go.
I got a keynote called My Friend Tom, and that's Tom from MySpace.
Just make Chris Sam in the real world.
he'll be
Sam.
This
is all the stuff he's done wrong.
Yeah. That's a great idea. You hear that, Chris?
Chris in the studio next to you. He's probably like, "What's Jim volunteering for?"
Yeah, my crew's out here.
Well, this has been awesome. Thank you, John. Thank you, David, for jumping in and just engaging and having a great convo. Chris, what's up, man?
What's going on? How's it going?
Very helpful, John. And we'll post this so people can grab it in the community as well. I'll have it posted in the share here.
Right on.
Tab. So that way you can look back on it too, David, if you need anything. I'm going to look back on this again, and I'm going to start creating some content around those.
I'm going to build me a golden grid sheet for use on this, because that was the eye opener, right? Moving them through the quadrants. That if you take nothing else from today's call, take the golden grid and apply it.
Totally.
Awesome. I'll have my team create a PDF and put that when you post this. You could download the golden grid, so that's already built out. So you could just use it, print it out, use it as a worksheet.
Cool. And that's all we got today. Thanks for joining us for the Impact Effect Community Marketing Strategy call, meeting, Zoom, video, inside our community, whatever we want to call these things these days. I hope this was helpful for you. It was extremely helpful for me. John, thank you so much for just pouring into our community here and spending time and sharing your knowledge. And David, thank you for just engaging and sharing and navigating a real life scenario. We'll do another one of these in May, and we'll post it in the group. And we'll send some reminders out for next month. So thank you all for being here. Have a great rest of your day, and have a wonderful week ahead.
All righty. See y'all.